So, wanting to get into flying model airplanes, I had recently been given this AeroScout as a present, and I slowly am beginning to learn how to fly. And on my third attempt, I took a bit of a nosedive. In the process, this front gear took a serious hit, and it resulted in this hole behind the front gear, or the front wheel I should say, and this has become very loose. It was actually pushed way back when I first got it. I pulled it forward, and inside I wound up pulling back this Velcro to hold down the battery, and found that this section of the plywood had been broken. I tried just briefly pulling the wheel forward and putting some wood glue on here to see how we would do, but it's still not terribly stable. If I flip the plane over and pull on this, you can see it's got a lot of wobble in it. Got this big old hole here. This piece was floating around inside. I managed to get it out. But when I went to find how to repair this online, the company that makes this AeroScout has a bunch of great videos for fixing other parts of the plane, but they didn't cover this. And I have found that there are several other people online who also ran into the same problem. So I thought maybe I would document my attempts to repair this, because I didn't really see any good guidance on how to fix this. One thing that's puzzling me is what the purpose of these 3 black screws are. Even, they're very tight. I don't know if maybe they're sheared off or something, but you can see the inside mechanism is very loose. Not quite sure how to go about this. In the process of trying to repair this plane, I neglected to tell you the strategy I came up with. I made a video already about putting the epoxy on. What I decided to do was use these popsicle sticks. Really, they're not terribly big. I took one of these actually, and I kind of broke it in half. And I decided to make like a T pattern behind the metal plate supporting the wheel. So I've got one portion of it running across here, and then the other portion that goes further back, figuring that would maybe anchor it to give a little more support if I hit that front wheel hard again. People online on the Reddit community were recommending epoxy, 5-minute epoxy. I haven't really ever played with it before. Hindsight, now I know what this is and what it looks like. I probably should have picked up the clear version and a little less ugly. But I think it's going to do the trick. This is a 6-minute epoxy. You mix up, 2 different tubes. One's the epoxy, there's a hardener. And so all I did was I dug into the foam with an X-Acto knife, made some little channels for the popsicle sticks to land down inside of. Put that spare piece of foam that I had retrieved back in its spot, and I put this vertical post right now just to temporarily hold this T tight up against the wheel. And then I just went to town epoxying it. I went around the front and sides of the metal too, figuring the more the merrier. And we'll see how it does. So, a little while later, epoxy appears to be hardening up nicely. This is looking really solid. I think it's going to work. I think it'll get me in the air again. And we'll try and do a better job of not crashing it. One interesting side note about this whole repair process was I solved an issue I was having with this plane. I started out practicing on the ground, just driving it back and forth and learning to steer it, learning how controls get opposite when it's coming at you and going away and such. And then once I finally got in the air, I found it was pulling in one direction a lot. And I believe it was because this wheel was not lined up with the rudder. So when it was on the ground, I used the fine tuning to adjust the wheel so then it would stay straight. But then once I actually got into the air, it was pulling like crazy. So I was actually able to solve this because I found that they have this servo here with one connection, this connection right here going up to the front wheel and this other one going back to the rudder. And all I did was I loosened this screw here, eyeballed this straighter while the rudder was straight, and then refastened it. And so I'm hoping that this crash will have guided me to solving the heavy pulling to the right while it was in the air.